Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of precision,
Oh, absolutely.
like engineering, right? You break your arm,
Yeah.
the X-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, "There it is."
Yeah, it's comforting, isn't it? We really like things to be visible, to be neatly categorized into a yes or a no.
Right. But then you step into the world of neurodevelopment, trauma, and even just everyday confidence, and suddenly that X-ray machine is broken.
Completely broken.
We're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is incredibly murky. I mean, how do you measure a feeling? How do you put a cast on a lack of confidence?
Well, you're hitting on the exact reason why the mind-body connection has been so misunderstood for, gosh, decades.
Yeah.
We treat the brain like an isolated computer sitting in the skull, just issuing commands to a dumb meat suit. But the reality is that the meat suit is talking back loudly every single second.
Which is exactly what we are digging into today for this deep dive. We are unpacking the profound biological two-way street between your physical body and your psychological state.
And we've got some amazing data to back this up.
We really do.
Yeah.
And to figure this out, we aren't just looking at like a couple of psychology papers. We have a wild stack of sources today.
Very diverse.
Right. We're pulling from Ohio State psychology labs, sure, but also a fascinating kinematic thesis on how humans walk.
Yes, that one is incredible.
Plus ergonomic data from modern offices and even hardcore physical therapy protocols. We've all been told a million times by our parents to stand up straight. Okay, let's unpack this.
Long overdue.
Right. Today we're going to learn exactly why slouching literally changes what you believe about yourself. We'll see how your nervous system acts like a high-speed sensory highway, and how you can actually hack your own biology to build an unshakable confidence loop.
It completely reframes how we experience our own thoughts, honestly. If we start with that 2009 Ohio State University study you mentioned, it just shatters the illusion that our inner monologue is objective.
Yeah. This study was the foundational, mind-blowing fact for me in this entire stack. It turns out sitting up straight isn't just about looking professional at a dinner party.
No, not all.
It literally alters what you believe about your own mind.
Right. So the setup for the study was incredibly clever. The researchers brought in 71 students and gave them a task, which was to write down their job qualifications.
Basically just listing out positive personal traits.
Exactly. But the trick was they manipulated the students' posture while they did this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, half the students were told to sit upright, pushing their chests out. The other half were told to sit slouched forward with their faces looking down toward their knees.
And they had to mask the true purpose of the study, right? Because if you tell a college student, sit like a confident CEO and write about yourself, they're going to bias the results.
Oh, for sure. The researchers actually used a cover story. They told the students this was a study about ergonomics and holding a pose for an art class.
That is so sneaky.
Right. They just gave them mechanical instructions on how to hold their spines and their heads, completely hiding the psychological angle.
Okay, so you have these two groups writing down the exact same types of positive traits. Things like, I'm a hard worker or I'm smart, whatever. What happened when they read those traits back to themselves?
Well, the results actually caught the researchers off guard.
Really?
Yeah. The students who wrote down those positive traits while sitting upright genuinely believed them. They rated themselves highly as future professionals.
Okay, and the other group?
The students who wrote down those exact same positive traits while slouched over, they actively doubted their own thoughts. They just didn't buy into their own qualifications.
It's like their brain was saying, well, I wrote that I'm a dedicated worker, but my body is currently collapsed in on itself like a dying star, so I must be lying.
That's exactly it. And what's fascinating here is the nuance of this mechanism. Posture doesn't just magically generate happy, positive thoughts out of thin air.
Right, it's not magic.
It doesn't work like that at all.
Yeah.
The researchers did a follow-up where they asked the upright students to write down negative traits about themselves.
Oh.
Yeah, and the upright posture actually amplified their belief in those negative thoughts.
Wait, pause. So people didn't realize their posture was dictating this? They were just blindly trusting whatever their brain was outputting.
They had no idea.
Not realizing the physical shape of their spine was dictating their reality.
The participants didn't even report feeling consciously more confident in the upright position. It was entirely subconscious.
It's like posture is a volume knob for your inner monologue.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, if you're slouched, someone turned the volume down to a whisper, and you just don't buy what you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
But if you sit up, you turn the volume up to a 10 and whatever's playing on the radio.
Whether it's positive or negative.
Right. Whether it's I'm a genius or I'm a failure, you believe it completely.
That volume knob analogy perfectly captures the psychology, but there is a very real, measurable chemical component backing up that volume knob.
What do you mean?
Well, the sources pull in data on expansive posture. It's often called power posing in the Harvard data. Just 2 minutes of holding an expansive upright pose can increase testosterone by roughly 20%.
20%.
Yeah. And testosterone in both men and women is heavily linked to risk tolerance and a feeling of dominance.
Hold on. You're telling me that just standing like Superman with my hands on my hips for 2 minutes drops, or rather, increases a major hormone by that much.
Yeah.
That almost sounds too easy. Is that really happening chemically, or is there like a placebo effect at play?
No, it is happening chemically, and it's because of a biological mechanism called proprioception. That's your body's awareness of where it is in space.
Okay, proprioception.
Right. Your brain constantly monitors your muscle tension and joint positions. When you take up space, your body signals to your brain that you are safe and in control.
That makes sense.
And alongside that 20% bump in testosterone, expansive posture drops cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Exactly, the primary stress hormone. It drops it by about 25%. So you are quite literally changing your blood chemistry just by changing how you hold your rib cage.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And it leads to a pretty unavoidable conclusion. If our internal chemistry is being shaped that aggressively by how we sit, it has to be shaping our external reality too.
Oh, without a doubt.
Especially at work,
Yeah.
where we spend, most of our waking hours.
And where the stakes are the highest. We know that up to 93% of communication is nonverbal.
Wow, 93.
Yeah, and people form their baseline impressions of you in under 30 seconds. Before you even open your mouth to pitch an idea, the geometry of your body has already spoken for you.
But work is inherently stressful. I mean, if you're listening to this right now, there's a good chance you are hunched over a keyboard, stressed about a deadline, or staring at your phone.
Probably.
We know psychological stress forces us into this contracted state. How much is that impacting us?
More than we realize, and it affects different demographics uniquely. There's this fascinating tool researchers use called the NASA Task Load Index, or NASA TLX.
Okay.
It's basically a highly validated assessment that measures how hard your brain feels it is working, your perceived mental workload.
And what did it find?
The data showed that in standing tasks, women actually reported an 18.7% higher perceived mental workload than men.
Wait, really? So if you're a woman standing at a desk or working in a lab right now, your brain is registering the physical demand of that posture as almost 20% more taxing than your male colleagues.
Yes. It highlights how the subtle continuous stress of the workplace uniquely impacts our physical bodies. It slowly grinds us down into these defensive, closed-off stances just to conserve energy.
So what is physically breaking down in our bodies when we do that? The physical therapy sources point the finger at one specific culprit when it comes to the office slouch, right? The thoracic spine.
Ah, yes. The thoracic spine is essentially your mid-back. It's the bridge connecting your neck to your lumbar spine, and it anchors your rib cage.
Okay.
When this area lacks mobility, which is the inevitable result of sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, your shoulders round forward.
Right. The classic tech hunch.
Exactly. When your shoulders round, your chest cavity physically compresses. That compression leads to shallow, rapid breathing.
Which feels terrible.
And suddenly, without meaning to, you are biologically projecting submissiveness and low energy to everyone in the boardroom.
I look at it like the thoracic spine is the hinge of a laptop.
That's a great visual.
If that hinge gets rusted shut from years of desk work, you literally can't open up to the room. You're just stuck halfway closed.
Yeah.
So how do we unrust the hinge? Because most of us can't just quit our desk jobs.
True. But the clinical guidelines in the sources provide some highly effective, actionable fixes. One of best is an exercise called wall angels.
Wall angels. How do you do that?
You stand flat against a wall and slowly slide your arms up and down in a Y to W shape while forcing your elbows in the backs of your wrists to maintain contact with the drywall.
That sounds deceptively agonizing for someone with bad posture.
It is surprisingly difficult. I mean, people really struggle with it,
Yep.
but it forcefully opens the chest and activates what physical therapists call your scapular stabilizers.
Which are what?
That's really just a functional term for the muscles around your shoulder blades. They act like the cables on a suspension bridge, pulling your shoulders back into their proper, healthy sockets.
Yeah. Any other quick fixes for the rusted hinge?
The cat-cow with a T-spine reach is Excellent.
Oh, like in yoga.
Very similar. You're on all fours, rounding and arching your back, but then you thread one arm under your body and rotate it all the way up toward the ceiling.
Adding the rotation.
Right. Or the open book stretch, where you lie on your side, knees bent, and stretch your top arm across your chest, opening your torso up to the ceiling like a book. These aren't just stretches, they are actively restoring the rotational mechanics of your mid-back.
All right, so let's say we've fixed our desk posture. We are sitting tall, our inner monologue volume is dialed up, our thoracic hinge is oiled.
Perfect.
But what happens when we stand up and start walking?
Yeah.
Because walking into a room full of peers is a completely different beast than sitting statically at a desk.
It is. Walking is a highly sophisticated, dynamic motor task. And this is where the research gets truly counterintuitive.
Yeah, I found this fascinating.
Sean Halovic published a thesis in 2005 from the University of Western Sydney looking at how confidence is projected through the kinematics of gait, which is just the actual biomechanics of how we study.
This part blew my mind. Halovic manipulated people's confidence levels using high and low balance beam tasks.
Right.
Then they put tracking markers on the participants and filmed them walking. And the researchers fully expected the confident walkers to have these massive, fast, powerful strides.
They thought confidence equaled taking up more space faster.
It makes logical sense. But the data proved it completely wrong. There was zero significant difference in speed or joint angles between the high and low confidence groups.
Not at all.
Walking fast with giant strides does not inherently make you look confident. It just makes you look like you're late for a meeting.
Exactly. So what actually made them look confident? Because Halovic did this cool thing where they stripped away the video and turned the walkers into just dots on a screen.
Oh, right, a point light display.
Yeah, a point light display so observers couldn't see their faces or clothes, just the motion of their joints.
And what separated the confident dots from the unconfident dots?
It was a concept called fluidity and movement synchrony. The observers overwhelmingly rated the walkers as confident only when their entire kinetic chain moved in unison.
Meaning everything flowing together.
Yes. It's the visual absence of tension. It's the smooth, effortless transfer of energy from the floor up through the skull.
Which brings us to the actual mechanics of that smooth transfer. The sources break down the 6 determinants of gait, which involve complex things like pelvic rotation and lateral tilt.
It sounds super technical.
It does, but the goal of all 6 determinants is simple. Minimize the vertical bouncing of your center of mass.
Yes.
Imagine carrying a full cup of coffee. You don't want to bounce up and down with every step. You want to glide forward smoothly.
A perfect visual.
But there is a modern epidemic standing in the way of this glide. The physical therapy sources bluntly call it the lazy bum.
Yes, the lazy bum. It's a massive issue in modern biomechanics. From an evolutionary standpoint, humans are built to be glute-dominant walkers.
Meaning we should be using our butts.
Exactly. Our ancestors used their gluteus maximus and gluteus medius, those are the large muscles of the buttocks and hips, as the primary engines to propel themselves forward and keep their pelvis level.
But we sit all day.
Right. Modern humans sit so much that those muscles essentially fall asleep. We have become quad-dominant walkers.
We're basically just dragging our bodies forward with the front of our thighs.
Exactly. We are pulling instead of pushing. And when you don't engage your glutes, specifically the gluteus medius on the side of your hip, your pelvis drops on one side every time you lift a foot.
How weird.
To stop yourself from falling over, you have to throw your upper body weight over the standing leg. It creates the side-to-side lumbering sway.
Wait, so to clarify, if someone is lumbering side to side down the hallway, it's not just a quirky personality trait.
No.
Is that their glutes literally aren't firing to stabilize their pelvis, so their body has to desperately throw its weight around to stay upright.
That's the biomechanical reality. They lack the structural stability to move fluidly. To fix this, you can't just think about walking smoothly. You have to fix the mechanical foundation at the floor.
You do that.
The sources emphasize the heel-ball-toe roll. When your foot hits the ground, it should strike at the heel, roll smoothly across the outer edge and ball of the foot, and push off powerfully from the big toe.
It's a chain reaction.
Precisely. That deliberate toe push-off engages the calf, which fires the hamstring, which forcefully engages the glute.
And then the glute locks the pelvis.
Exactly. That engaged glute locks the pelvis in place, which allows the thoracic spine to glide smoothly forward without swaying. That mechanical chain reaction is the physical manifestation of movement synchrony.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We've talked about the mechanics, right? The glutes, the thoracic spine, the volume knob.
Yeah.
But Why does the brain care so much if our glutes are engaged or our chest is open? What is the actual hardwired neurological link connecting a tight chest to feeling panic?
To understand the hardwiring, we have to look at polyvagal theory and the autonomic hierarchy. The absolute key player here is the vagus nerve. The word vagus actually means wandering in Latin, and it is a massive bidirectional sensory highway that wanders from your brainstem all the way down through your visceral organs, your heart, your lungs, your gut.
And the key word there is bidirectional. It's not just the brain sending commands down to the body. The body is constantly sending massive amounts of surveillance data back up to the brain.
Yes, 80% of the vagus nerve's fibers are dedicated to sending information up to the brain. And polyvagal theory outlines 3 primary states of your nervous system based on this incoming data.
What are the 3 states?
The first is the ventral vagal state. This is our biological baseline of safety, social engagement, and connection. Physically, you see an open, upright posture, relaxed facial muscles, and deep rhythmic breathing.
That's the ideal. That's the confident walker gliding down the hall.
Exactly. But if the brain detects a threat, we drop into the second state, which is the sympathetic state.
Fight or flight.
That's your classic fight or flight response. Your heart rate spikes, breathing becomes shallow and high in the chest, and your flexor muscles tense up, creating a bracing, guarded posture. You're ready for impact.
So anxiety isn't just a mental phantom. Your brain is acting like a paranoid security guard staring at a bank of monitors.
I love that.
And if it looks at the monitor and sees your shoulders slumped, your breathing shallow, and your chest compressed from sitting at a desk, it assumes you're actively under physical attack and floods your system with adrenaline.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The scientific term is neuroception. Your nervous system is constantly evaluating risk without your conscious awareness.
So the slouching is the trigger.
Right. A constricted posture literally sends threat signals up the vagus nerve. And if that threat feels overwhelming or inescapable, the nervous system drops into the third, most primitive state, the dorsal vagal state.
And what's that one?
This is the freeze response. It is characterized by complete postural collapse, dissociation, and a massive drop in heart rate. It's a biological shutdown designed to numb pain and conserve energy in a hopeless situation, like an animal playing dead.
Wow. So when we slouch at our desks for 9 hours a day, we aren't just being lazy. We are chronically, actively sending low-level threat or shutdown signals to our own paranoid security guard.
We are trapping ourselves in a stress loop. But the beauty of this bidirectional highway is that we can reverse engineer it.
Oh, good. Tell me how.
This is the confidence loop we've been building toward. When you intentionally adopt an upright, expansive posture, you physically open the diaphragm. This allows the lungs to expand fully, which increases oxygen flow and improves a metric called heart rate variability, or HRV.
Pause on that. HRV gets thrown around a lot in fitness circles, but what does it actually mean in this context?
HRV is simply the variation in time between your heartbeats. You don't want a heart that beats like a metronome. You want a heart that dynamically speeds up slightly when you inhale and slows down when you exhale.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, high HRV means your nervous system is incredibly flexible and resilient. Deep breathing and an open chest increase that variability.
And that increased HRV sends a massive green light up the vagus nerve.
Exactly. It signals undeniable safety to the brainstem. The brain receives that physical data, realizes there is no tiger in the room, and shifts you out of the sympathetic fight-or-flight state back into the ventral vagal state of social engagement. Your posture physically cures your anxiety.
Okay, that is phenomenal in theory. If I'm sitting alone at my desk, I can focus on my breathing and my thoracic spine. But what happens when you're in the middle of a high-stakes presentation or a crowded networking event and you suddenly catch yourself in a mental shame spiral?
That's the hardest part.
Right. Your heart is racing, you're sweating, you're panicking. How do we hack the vagus nerve in real time when the loop completely breaks?
Because when you are in the middle of an acute anxiety spike, your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, goes offline.
You can't think straight.
Right. You cannot reason your way out of a panic attack when your brain is flooded with cortisol. The clinical somatic therapy sources are very clear on this. In those moments, you must use the body to rescue the mind. You have to use sensory grounding.
You have to distract the paranoid security guard with shiny objects.
In a way, yes. The classic clinical method is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. You force your brain to identify 5 things you can see, 4 things you can physically touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Just ripping your attention back to the physical room.
Exactly. By engaging the physical senses, you forcibly drag your awareness out of the catastrophic imaginary future and anchor it into the physical present.
And the breathing techniques play into this too. You
Yeah.
can't just take a normal deep breath, right? The sources highlight a specific ratio.
Yes, the 4-7-8 breath. You inhale quietly through your nose for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 7 seconds, and exhale forcefully through your mouth for 8 seconds.
Why that specific ratio?
Well, the magic here is the extended exhale.
Why does the exhale matter more than the inhale?
Because inhaling is linked to the sympathetic nervous system, it slightly speeds up the heart. Exhaling is linked to the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest side.
Oh, I see.
By deliberately extending the exhale to be twice as long as the inhale, you are aggressively stimulating the vagus nerve to apply the brakes to your heart rate, manually shutting down the fight-or-flight response.
I love the 4-7-8 breath. But the clinical sources also highlighted some really uncommon, borderline bizarre somatic tricks that I found fascinating. Things you can do if the traditional grounding isn't cutting through the panic.
They are unconventional, but they are incredibly effective for acute distress. Sometimes anxiety is so loud that counting things in the room isn't enough. You need a sharper sensory shock to break the cognitive loop.
Like sucking on a popsicle. Or eating a piece of incredibly sour candy like a lemon drop. Why does that work?
When you flood your taste buds with something incredibly sour or freezing cold, your brain's threat detection center is violently forced to divert its attention away from the imaginary threat of your presentation and toward this immediate, intense physical sensation occurring in your mouth.
That is so cool.
You're essentially short-circuiting the panic sequence with sensory override.
The sources mention other tricks too, like wiggling your toes inside your shoes to force awareness to your extremities, or chewing gum,
Oh, gum works great.
or even physically writing down your anxious thought on a piece of paper and aggressively ripping it to shreds to give the brain a physical completion of the anxiety.
There are also specific auditory and tactile somatic hacks. One is called VOO sounding. You take a deep breath into your belly and exhale while making a long, low foghorn sound like VOO.
I'm just picturing myself doing that in a bathroom stall before a big meeting, just vibrating like a foghorn.
I mean, it might feel ridiculous, but it's pure biology. The low-frequency vibration in your chest cavity and vocal cords directly massages and stimulates the vagus nerve. Another powerful tool is the butterfly hug. You cross your arms over your chest, hooking your thumbs together, and alternately tap your hands on your collarbones, left, right, left, right.
And what is the tapping doing?
It stems from EMDR therapy. The bilateral tapping forces your brain to pass attention back and forth across its 2 hemispheres. This bilateral stimulation demands so much processing power that it disrupts the brain's ability to fixate on the traumatic or anxious thought, allowing you to regulate your emotions.
Man, if we connect this to the bigger picture, these aren't just quirky parlor tricks to calm down. We are tapping into deeply rooted evolutionary biology here.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to how animals process survival energy. The somatic therapy sources detail a technique called pendulation, where you gently swing your mental focus back and forth between an uncomfortable bodily sensation, like a tight chest, and a neutral or safe area, like your big toe.
And what does that mimic?
Well, then there's the most primal reset of all, simply shaking it out. Standing up and vigorously shaking your arms, legs, and torso for a solid minute.
Literally like a dog shaking off water after a bath.
Exactly like that. If you watch a gazelle in the wild after it narrowly escapes a lion, it doesn't just go back to grazing. It will stand there and visibly shudder and shake its entire body.
Just vibrating the fear away.
It is an evolutionary biological mechanism designed to physically discharge the massive surge of adrenaline and trauma out of the nervous system, effectively hitting the reset button.
And we don't do that.
No. Modern humans experience the exact same chemical surge during a stressful board meeting, but social norms dictate that we just sit there rigidly in our ergonomic chairs. We trap the trauma inside. Shaking it out mimics that natural biological release.
So to summarize this incredible journey we've been on today, confidence is absolutely not just a mental attitude.
Far from it.
You can't just think positive thoughts while your body is structurally collapsed. Confidence is a measurable biomechanical reality. It is built from the soles of your feet with that deliberate heel-ball-toe roll. It is powered by your glutes stabilizing your pelvis. It is opened up through a mobile, unrusted thoracic spine. and it is chemically regulated by the vagus nerve wandering through your chest.
The mind and the body are not two separate entities. They are a single, continuous, echoing loop.
So if you are listening to this right now, the next time you feel that overwhelming wave of anxiety hit you, whether you're at your desk, at a party, or just sitting in traffic, remember that you don't have to try and think your way out of it.
You really don't.
You can literally move your way out of it.
Yeah.
Turn up the volume knob on your inner monologue by opening your chest, take a 4-7-8 breath, and take back control of your biology.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder that wasn't explicitly covered in the data today, but is the logical conclusion of everything we've discussed.
Okay, lay it on us.
We've established how heavily our neurobiology relies on expansive, upright posture to signal psychological safety and confidence to our brains.
Right.
If that is true, what are the long-term evolutionary consequences for a modern society that spends hours every single day physically collapsed over smartphones, tablets, and keyboards?
Oh, wow.
Are we passively engineering a global generational shift toward that dorsal vagal freeze state simply through our daily technology habits?
Wow. Are we just chronically traumatizing our own nervous systems by looking at our screens? That is definitely something to chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.